Okay, so today we're going to be super tuning other planet trucks. This time we're looking at shims. We've talked about shims in the past, but before we've kind of been like, this is what it is, they're easy to make, go do it. And I don't think anyone's really quite caught on yet. So I'm going to do a little bit more in depth this time and actually make some. So first we get the old shims out of here and you can see kind of how they work and what they do. So these got some older shims I used to use, and these are Formica shims, and I just have one thick shim in this truck. And what the shim does is it takes up space in the channel to make it sized better for the hanger, as well as acting as a wear surface so that the hanger or the channel does not wear down. And if we look at this very carefully, you can see where there has been wear and it's worn away the paint and has exposed bare metal. It was just on the part across the top there. And you can see on the shim that I had in there, there's definitely a lot of wear that has happened there. So the point of the shim is kind of two things. The shim is to absorb wear so that you're not wearing out your base plate or your hanger. The second thing is just to make sure that the base plate and the channel is latched down tightly on the hanger, because it was designed so that when you tighten down the bolt, that will tighten down on the base plate and tighten down on the channel, and that will, tighten down on the hanger. However, you want to rely on that as little as possible, because a bolt will apply force only in the center, and it'll actually cause the channel to bow in slightly, the channel wall. So it'll be closer in the center than it is on the outside. And that is not ideal for either performance or for wear or longevity. So to the extent that you can, you want to fill up that space with shim, so that way you don't have to tighten down the bolt that fell on the floor nearly as much. So if it makes any sense. So how do we go about and actually make the shim? Well, you want to use some sort of plastic that you can easily cut or shape. Well, I've got Formica here, and that worked okay, but it's so thick I can only shim up one side. And so it's only protecting one side of the hanger from wear. We used to use polystyrene and UHMW and Delrin, but that can be a little hard to find. That's stuff we had to order in sheeting. So it's probably a lot easier is just this normal high density polyethylene. And this is the same stuff that you have milk cartons made out of, but milk cartons don't have a lot of flat surface area that you can cut into shims with, whereas these more cylindrical types do. So this is just glass cleaner. Windshield wiper fluid comes in bottles like this. Bleach will come in bottles like this. So it's a very common shape of bottle. It's got a lot of big surface area, and they're almost always made of high density polyethylene, which means it has a very low coefficient of friction. UHMW is ultra high density polyethylene, and that's what we make the slide pucks out of. So this is not quite as high quality as UHMW, but it's still high density. And you can see it says HDPE, high density polyethylene. So that's what you want to look for, and that'll tell you it's a really good material for making shims out of. So to start off, I'm just going to move this slightly out of the way over here. I'll keep it nearby because I'm going to use my calipers to take measurements of it. But first thing I'm going to do is cut open my bottle, and I'm just going to try to get these big cylinder parts going. Keep as much area as I can that is flat, although this is not extremely, what would you call it, precise. There you go. Don't cut yourself. go, it's perfect. And then I've got a seam right here that I can see that'll give me a nice flat line to cut across. So I'll more carefully cut that because I do want flat lines for the actual shims. There we go. And now I've got a nice long sheet of high density polyethylene that I can cut shims out of. So what I'll do is I'll cut the 4-inch long piece here, and I'll just use the shim actually as the measuring tape. So 4-inch there, I'll use a marker, draw it out, and I'll use my ruler as my straight edge, and there we go. That'll get me a 4-inch wide piece that I can cut shims from. And then if I'm doing this, I might want to go and just go ahead and make shims from this whole piece, and that way I'll have them for when I need to replace them. Perfect. There we go. There's my piece for making shims from. So now I just got to get the lengths of the sides. So I've gotten a known length, so I can actually just copy this, but I'll go ahead and copy from the base plate. We'll start off by measuring this, the outside one, and I'll use my calipers for that. Perfect. Now the battery's dead, so I have to then reference on the ruler, and it is just over 2.5 inches. It's a 1/16 of an inch over 2.5 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark that here. I'll go 2.5 and then the 1/16, or I'll just use the width of the Sharpie to be my extra 1/16. There we go. Now you're going to need 4 shims per board. So I'm actually just going to be making 2 shims for 1 truck for right now. Like that. That should be good. And then that'll just go in there. And it's a little tall, so I'll trim it down a little bit. It doesn't really matter if it sticks up, actually. So I guess I'll just leave it. So there's that side. So on this side, the shim will need to be at exactly 1 3/4 inches. Double check that again. 1 3/4 inches. And there we go. So I have 2 shims. It's got labels on one side. You probably want to get the labels off because it will actually, the thickness of the paper is enough to actually, you'll be able to feel that there's paper in there and that it's transitioning on and off paper. So you want to get the paper off, and then you want to stick them in somehow. You don't strictly need to. The hanger will actually hold them in. But if they're stuck in, let's say with like double stick tape is a very easy way to do it, then taking the hanger in and out becomes a little easier. So I've taken the label off these, and it's actually left a nice sticky surface, which will be perfect for holding them in place on the base plate, so that I'll be able to drill them, and it'll also make it easier to take the hanger in and out without these moving all over the place. So what I'm going to do is line them up. The cam has to go back in. I'm sliding this in behind the cam. I'm centering it up best I can, and then I'm kind of pressing it to stick it in place. This one I'm also going to slide in, kind of even it out, and press it in. Both of them overhang a little bit, so they stick out a little more past the base plate. That is perfectly fine. And then I've got a 1/4 inch drill bit. That's the size of the holes in the base plate or the bolt. And I'm just going to very carefully drill out holes for that. And that is about perfect. So now that the hole's drilled, they're basically in there. And so the only thing about drilling the hole is you have to be careful you don't, it goes in really straight and you're not taking off aluminum. You don't want to make these holes oblong. Once you've got one set drilled, it's probably better to use that set as a template to make more rather than drilling them all on the trucks. So now I've got to get the hanger back in there, and this is a little snug. Some bottles are going to be thicker plastic than others. So it's, if you just wiggle it, it'll work its way down. And so now I'm just going to make sure that the hole in the hanger is lined up. So if you're having trouble lining up the hole, instead of trying to shift the hanger back and forth in the channel, you can actually just lift one side up and align the slot with the hole. So that looks good there. This goes on this side. Oops, moved the camera there. That goes on that side. And there we go. I can tighten, if I can get this thing to work. There we go. I can tighten this back down. Because this is already so tight, this is just going to be going down to just barely snug because I don't need any more pressure on it. And it's just a titch too much. There we go. And that's perfect. So there we go. This truck now has polyethylene shims in it. It'll travel really smoothly. As it wears in, it won't be as tight of a fit, and it'll be even better. But yeah, so this will keep the trucks so they're really tolerant, so there's no slop. The channel grabs the hanger really well, and it'll keep it that way. There won't be any wear. You know, it is something that every truck should benefit from, and I really, really highly recommend that you go out and make your own shims. It really changes the way the ride feels. It's just got this really slick feel as it travels through the slot. Even though it is a really tight fit and I can feel resistance, it's a very smooth gliding feel. It's very nice. I really encourage you to make the shims. I can't say it enough. So there we go. Super tuning other plant trucks. How to make your own shims. Longboard technology. Over and out.